Bring in Wyoming Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. Senator, good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria.
Before we begin, I want to get your take on what we heard yesterday from the founders of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream. They are supporting Bernie Sanders for president. We talked a bit about tax plans. Listen to their take on things. Are you prepared, if push comes to shove, will you be okay with paying 92% of your earnings to the government? You think that's fair?
It's never going to be that.
You're the highest earners, Ben & Jerry. Come on. You got to pay your fair share.
We'd be happy to. As Ben described, it's the marginal tax rate. So up to a certain amount, you pay 15%. Over the next amount, you pay 20-something%. Over the next amount. And so you're only paying your highest rate when you're making over, I don't know, $300,000, $500,000, $1 million. It's not 92% of your entire income.
Senator, somehow they mangle that to come up with new ways to pay taxes. The bottom line is Bernie Sanders has said anybody making more than $250,000, you could see as high as 92% tax rates.
Well, they ought to stick to making ice cream instead of tax policy. I'll tell you, if you think about their socialism sorbet, I don't think a lot of people are going to want to buy it. We know that the government can either create or crush opportunities through taxes and mandates, the regulations that come out. Boy, I don't think the American people are going to buy this at all.
It's just unbelievable to me because, I understand the euphoria around Bernie Sanders, but it almost seems like some of his strongest supporters don't actually understand his policies. It was very clear that they really had no idea about Sanders' tax plan.
Well, very few people do, and that's why I think that either Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton would not be good as president in terms of the jobs, the economy, national security. I think that we're seeing a country heading in the wrong direction, and we sure don't want to continue in that direction or put our foot on the accelerator.
Do you see a growth plan out there that you think could move the needle in terms of economic growth and job creation?
Well, absolutely, and it has to do with taxes and mandates and regulations, and I think the president has been very heavy-handed in all of those areas, and we need to make it a lot easier. Think about the government. It can either be the and private sector, and I think the private sector ought to be seen as the engine of the economy, not the enemy of the economy, which is the way that Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders happen to paint it.
Yeah, let me switch gears and ask you about the nomination to replace Antonin Scalia. The president said, any pushback is not going to go very far. He is going to nominate his pick. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think that the American people ought to have a voice in this. They ought to have a say. I don't think that a lame duck president should make a lifetime appointment, so that the election in November ought to make the decision as to whether a Republican or a Democrat is president. That person should make that lifetime appointment. That's the way the American voters' voices will be heard. All
right, let me shift on to this op-ed that you wrote recently. You took a look at oil, saying that the president's plan to tax, he wants to put a $10 tax on oil. You think it's an attack on America's oil industry?
Well, and it goes right to the middle-class, hardworking taxpayers around the country. The president in his budget has proposed about a 24-cent a gallon tax on gasoline. He proposes it as a $10 a barrel tax on oil. And I'll tell you, it plays right into the hands of Russia and to Iran. And energy is called the master resource for a reason. It powers our economy. It powers our military. So when the president does this and puts us at a competitive disadvantage overseas, he's ceding the market to Russia, to Iran, and to others at a time when we ought to be growing our own economy and using our own energy resources. And to make matters worse, Hillary Clinton has said recently that in terms of energy development on public lands, as president, she said it would be a done deal. There would be no more energy development of fossil fuels when about 25% of all of the energy we use in this country comes from public lands, and billions and billions of dollars in tax revenue comes from that energy.
Yeah, Senator, at the same time, it's Dagan McDowell. This is where the jobs are being lost, is in the energy sector, and you have rhetoric from elected officials and from those Democrats on the campaign trail talking down our energy business. When are they going to get religion and realize this is about our national security? This is about job creation at a time when we need those very jobs.
Well, you're absolutely right. Energy security is national security, and we ought to be focusing on red, white, and blue American energy. The president has this fixation, this misguided obsession with green energy. And there is a huge gap between reliable energy and renewable energy. It's a vast gap that is not easily going to be closed. We need all the sources of energy. We have abundance of energy in the United States, and we should keep that as competitive on the world stage. Now, right now, we have an energy bill that is tied up on the Senate floor because of what happened in Flint, Michigan. This is a bill that has passed 18-4, bipartisan support, but the Democrats are holding it hostage now because they want more money for Flint. This bill allows for us to export, make it easier to export liquefied natural gas. We have an abundance in this country. We ought to be selling it to our friends overseas who want to buy it.
Yeah, so what about that? I mean, looking at the 2016 election right now, are you going to be able to see things get done with the new president? I mean, you know, conservatives are upset by that omnibus bill. It basically just blows off any pushback and gives President Obama an okay to all of his agenda, whether it be the refugees or Obamacare or so many other things. So, Senator, who out there do you think in the campaign is going to be the one to bring people together, and will you be able to work best with?
Well, I'm going to support whoever is nominated by the Republican Party, and any one of them are going to be much better than Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders in terms of jobs, the economy, in terms of consumers, in terms of our national security, in terms of international activities. They're going to be focused on jobs, and they're going to be focused on the economy. And we have a president for the last 8 years hasn't really done that. That's why 70% of Americans say that they believe the country is heading in the wrong direction, and they're looking for a change.
Senator, this is David Webb. I have a question about
David.
tax policy. The candidates have all put out some form of tax policy. We need tax reform in this country. If the House starts working heavily on tax reform, getting us maybe whether to a flat, a fair, just fix the tax code, will the Senate stand firmly and fight with the Republicans on this? Because the problem is it hasn't been fixed over the years.
Well, you're right. The last time it was done was when there was divided government, when Ronald Reagan was the president and you had Tip O'Neill as the Speaker of the House. That left a wonderful opportunity to get it done. Now, although President Obama, he says any kind of tax reform, he wants to start with $1 trillion of new tax revenue. And I don't think that's the way to do it. We need to lower the rates, broaden the base. There are things we can do to simplify the tax code. We ought to be doing that. Paul Ryan is on the right track as the Speaker of the House, and I want to help him.
Senator, when there seems to be a breakdown, this is Tony Dwyer, there seems to be a breakdown in the messaging coming from the Republican Party. In other words, a unified message that is driven toward understanding things like what a $10 a barrel tax on oil means. How can we fix the messaging, or how can you fix the messaging coming from the party?
Well, I think that it's pretty clear the American people see that the country is heading in the wrong direction, and they want to undo the damage that President Obama has done to our economy. So that when we talk about what the president is proposing with a gas tax, 24 cents a gallon, and he says it's a tax on big oil, that's basically, and I think fundamentally dishonest. The American people realize that that's going to be a tax on them when they see that they're paying 25 cents a gallon more at the tank. But that's what the president has proposed in his budget. But I will tell you, even the Democrats are running away from what the president is talking about. So I think this debate ultimately in the election is going to be about jobs, the economy, national security. And I think that's a very good ground for Republicans to be fighting on when you see what this president and his administration has done in terms of the direction he has taken the country.
Senator, good to have you on the program this morning. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Maria.
We'll see you soon. Senator Barrasso joining us there. Up next, Apple still